Hi, welcome to identityweek.net. I'm Evie Kimsing, running this portal. We're inviting a really special guest today onto the platform to kick off our Transformative Women conversations. This is connected to our Transformative Women initiative at Identity Week. Across all our events, it's really great to introduce now Annet Steenbergen, who's currently advised at the EU Digital Wallet Consortium. You've also set up kind of your own project, the Aruba Happy Flow 2.0, which started in 2015 to enable seamless biometric facilitation in the travel industry. You've really, through that, tried to coordinate public and private sector cooperation. You've started your career as a board member and really continued to hold those high level roles across IATA and different policy and advisory roles. Could you just give us an overview of your career? Your career steps and how that relates to this topic of, the challenges that women face traditionally in a male-dominated environment. How hard is it to firstly get to the stage where you are? You come across lots of discrimination in terms of people don't necessarily know who you are, what your role is, and I'm sure over your career you've encountered this. Could you just give us an overview?
Yeah, thanks, Evie. Great to see you again, and thanks for inviting me. And my compliments on this initiative. I think it's really important to get attention, explain why this is important, and take this forward. So compliments to that. I've always worked in a male-dominated environment, I guess, because I started working out for the Immigration Naturalization Service as a policy officer on international border management. And that is a topic working closely with, in the Netherlands, the Royal Marechaussee, airlines, the airport, and somehow it's pretty much male-dominated, not completely, but very much male-dominated. Which is getting less, but I started out in the 90s. So it was still a difference then. And yeah, it's a great topic, close to my heart. I will always love working in this field, in this area. I'm very used to working in a male-dominated environment. But it is it's seeing changes, luckily. When I started out, I was at Schiphol, one of my first jobs, in a supportive role, in a policy officer, legally supportive role, supporting the Dutch border police in their work. And there were, funny enough, a lot of female colleagues. And so there was this, with a lot of male border police, we were giving some legal advice, doing legal court cases. And so we were sometimes referred in, in funny names, or that group of ladies. I'll think you can think of names. There was a book where it was about immigration problems or immigration issues in the 90s, and there was a sentence where it was referred to these girls, where we were not in a minority, but we were dealing with a lot of males as colleagues, as stakeholders. So it didn't. You were used to it, I guess, back in the day, and you just dealt with it. And I never had a bad working relationship with all the stakeholders because of that. I went on a lot of missions with the Dutch government, and I remember being mistaken for the secretary of the mission because I was the only female on the delegation. So yeah, it's annoying. It was annoying, but then you moved on. But Nevertheless, I hope that we can change this so many years on. And I think an initiative like this is unfortunately still very, very important to raise awareness of the topic. And hopefully to be an example, show that you can be an example and get a lot of women to join this really exciting, interesting, diverse space. If they hear digital identity, people think it's all technical. I do not have a technical background, rather the opposite, but it doesn't mean that you do not work in this space, because the diversity is not only are you male, female, etc., but it's also your background and who you are, because and we discussed quickly before we started this interview, it is the diversity on so many levels that supports innovation. Innovation needs a diverse input and a diverse view on an issue that needs solving, that needs an innovative approach. So yeah, from that perspective, I do not know any other than working in a very male-dominated society workspace. But so on the other hand, absolutely no problems, because I'll keep working and I have a good relationship with everybody, because that's, I think, important. But on the other hand, there have been, issues again, like I said, you're mistaken for the secretary, or I remember being in meetings and when I opened my mouth, that I see people being sort of surprised that, oh, she actually knows what she's talking about. Like, oh, that's interesting. That's a woman who knows what she's talking about. So that kind of response was, on the one hand, it's nice to see, but on the other hand, it shouldn't be, because I have a job title and I'm not there at the table because I'm stupid. I'm there because I know what I'm talking about. So I guess, unfortunately, a lot of women still recognize that.
And I suppose your own path, you started out as a board member and your career's progressed since then, you're still advising. How hard is it to still probably notice some discrepancies between how maybe men are treated and women? Um, does it play out in the open so much?
Um, I started as a policy officer. So the board member came afterwards, I guess. It does still play out in the open, and women will joke about it amongst each other. And we do not do that publicly, of course. There is quite a lot of mansplaining still about. I get explained border management because I'm a woman. They don't expect me to understand border management as a woman. So I get explained it like, 1 and 1 is 2 to me. So that still happens. And I'll just smile and I'll drop a few things, and then people, the other person will be like, oh, okay, she actually knows what she's talking about. Um, that's that still happens. But at some point, some people know who you are, and then you've built a reputation, and hopefully that stops. But that takes a while, and for a lot of young women who are now joining the workforce and starting out in this field, I say, keep going. And this is a really, really interesting field to work in. And there is a really big need for more diversity in the workforce that deals with digital identity, because there's so much happening in the space of digital identity wallets, that if there is no diversity, we will not tackle all the issues at hand and all the innovation that we are currently involved in as an industry. AI is coming. AI bots are a big topic right now. There is Web3 coming. That all has to deal with digital identity. And that requires a wide outlook. and creative, innovative solution to bring it all together. And it's quite a complicated, if you talk digital identity, AI, Web3, all in one sentence, that's a lot. And we need a lot of people to bring that message forward and work on solutions, and not make it just a tech subject. It's more than technology. Technology, of course, is at its core, but there are regulations you need. We need people to explain what's going on, to sell what's going on. So it is a very diverse industry in topics, and therefore it needs a diverse workforce.
Thank you. Have you been involved in your career in any mentor or mentee, programs for women in the workplace? Um, could fostering these really be beneficial, as you mentioned, young people coming through, starting their careers?
I have sort of on a ad hoc basis, but not in a program. I would love to join it. Yes, sign me up. I think that would be really great, because there is, and it's, I think it's the way women relate to one another or do business. We do find each other at like an identity week or another big event. The women do find each other, and there's a different way. We're like, have a coffee or a glass of wine, and it is another way of doing business, I guess. So yeah, if there is a way to structure that, and especially for young starting professionals, to get the support from other women, that's really important.
How do we encourage retention of women? I think we spoke about, how important it is with, you know, making sure innovation is happens really. Um, sorry, I'm just going to pause that. So we mentioned briefly there, how important is inclusion in the workplace to more inclusive initiatives and products, and ultimately coming up with the frameworks about around these massive technological developments. We mentioned AI, the identity wallet. You can't get bigger than that, especially in the Europe space.
What is important to give an example, and by this initiative, that's a great example to give. Give it a platform. What I also very much like is the fact that you're doing these interviews, and I know that Identity Week always makes sure that if there is a panel and there are presentations, there is a good balance between men and women presenting, because if you can easily only have men presenting. I mean, there's enough out there. So I really appreciate that kind of initiative, and other events do the same. They really make an effort to make sure that there is equal or a good substantial amount of women represented on stage discussing these topics. So these are important. I think on another level, probably, if there is some kind of way where you can reach out to, I don't know, like high schoolers, bring your dad or mum to work, in this case, mum to work at the school day. Initiatives as these, showing that women also work in a digital space. And you do not necessarily have to have had a technical education, because that's often what really puts women off. Like, oh, I like a computer, but I don't want to do any coding or anything, and that is not necessarily what is the case. So really, I guess it needs explaining at the level of high schoolers. That there is much more work to be done in this digital industry, than studying information science as a basis. There's other things you can do for an education, tertiary education, and still end up working in this space and enjoying it. So that is, it's a lot about education and advocacy and explaining, I guess.
And representation is everything. If you see, yourself represented at an event or an industry, in an association or anything, then you're more likely to pursue, that avenue as well. Um, Organizations that, do diversity initiatives and do work around this, is it genuine? Is it a tick boxing exercise or tokenistic, or do you think, is there a disparity between what they say they're doing and what they're actually doing? Or are we getting better at, making changes and really representing women?
I know in Europe there's been a lot of affirmative action regulation that I think 40 or 50% of board members need to be female. So there is of just any organization. So there is some push to do this, but there has also been. I read, and I don't quote me on this, but I read, and of course I noticed the topics. I was really interested to read about that if you run a business and women are in charge or in higher management, that is very positive for the results of the organization. And I am sure that if you want to bring together an innovative team, if you do not have any women on board, you'll be less successful. Or that's a bold statement, but I'm sure that if you bring women on board, you will be more successful. Because diversity is always better and brings out more insights, more contributions, more creativity, and that's good for everybody.
Um, we spoke about your experience, which I think is really interesting as well. Everyone's gonna have their own experience of this. Um, it's been really great to speak to you today. What's your final thoughts on this? And, if your organization or workplace isn't doing enough, how can we actively, improve, close this gap, as well as things which might be, you know, we should all take responsibility for improving diversity in everything, events or what have you. So, what's your takeaway?
Um, I think while discussing this, I realized that it starts at the source. So it's really high schoolers telling them you can study tech, you can study HR management, you can study project management, or whatever, and still end up in the tech industry. And on the other hand, it's really important to if you do have women or you do have a job opening, to actively reach out to women and say that we'll have an extra interest if women apply for the job. That's another way, kind of a positive, what is it? What do you call it? Positive information? Yes. Affirmative action. Sorry, I was looking for that word. And that needs to be done to get more examples. And again, this example, getting the topic out there, speak about it, and showcase that there are a lot of women out there working in the industry of digital identity. So great work, Evie. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. And I look forward to your participation in Europe, Identity Week Europe in June. Thank you, Annette.
Me too. Thanks. See you there, Evie.